Hello and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. So we're up to Ixalan, as you can see here, released on the 29th of the 9th, 2017. So we're slowly making our way to the present day. Another thing to notice is there's a number disparity between the number of cards from the set in boosters and the number of cards in the set overall. So at this point in Magic's history, that can mean only one thing. There's some Planeswalker decks, and that's where the 10 extra cards are coming from. In terms of the set as a whole, there's a big tribal theme going on here. We've got double face cards, we've got vehicles, we've got treasure tokens, we have +1/+1 counters, and life as a resource. Keywords and ability words to look out for are explore, enrage, raid, crew, and transform. And as always, what I'll be doing in the episode is using those themes, mechanics, keywords, and ability words as ways of slicing through the set alongside cycles and the various card types. And also we'll be looking at how the tribal theme fits in to things like colour combinations. As I'm gently scrolling through here, you can also see the artwork reflecting the themes of the deck. And something else we'll notice, no doubt, when we have a look at the reprints versus the new cards, is whether or not there were any artwork changes for the reprints to reflect the themes of the set, which is, a normal thing to do here. So I'm moving through red and into green. I think you're already getting, just from the artwork, even if you can't focusing on the creature types, some idea of the sort of creatures or the sort of creature types that the tribal aspects gravitate around. But I'll leave that for the moment until we get to the slicing and dicing. So here we get onto the colour combinations. And you can see there's quite a number of that. Well, I say quite a number. There's a reasonable amount. And you can see here, something else we'll be looking at is these double face cards. And we've also got some land there, two colour land. And of course, because this is a large set, we've got our basic lands, which I always look forward to. I mentioned that there were 279 cards in boosters, so that's 20 basic lands, 101 commons, 80 uncommons, 63 rares and 15 mythic rares. And of course, in amongst that you get those randomly inserted premium versions of the cards. That's foil versions. I think at this point, and it's been a thing for a while, cards generally, and they were having a bit of a problem with curling. And I've been noticing that when I've been putting the artwork episodes together. Obviously, it wasn't unusual to see curling on foils just because you have one side that is foiled and the other side that isn't. But we were seeing curling on regular cards as well. Right. So you can see here, this is the 10 cards that are in the Planeswalker decks. and we'll look at the Planeswalker decks at the end. We've got 24 cards that are reprints. Which also includes some non-basic lands, which are reprints. And 245 cards which are not reprints. Now, of course, as we're going through this, this also includes those 10 Planeswalker deck cards. And the numbers for those are anything above 280 and above. And as I've pointed out before, it looks a bit weird because the set size here is displayed 279, so you get these things where it says 280 out of 279. Okay, let's see how just generally the colours slice up. So we've got 14 cards that are completely colourless in terms of their colour identity. They may well, as this one does, potentially reference, like this one, you know, 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. But that doesn't count as colour identity. There's no colours referenced in the actual activation cost in here, or any of the activation costs in there, and any of the actual original casting costs. There are no cards where you can use any colour in the casting costs. You know, there's no reference to a particular colour in the casting cost, but there is a reference to a colour in the activation costs. No cards at all. So it looks like the vast majority of the set is monocolour, like full monocolour in terms of the colour identity. So single colour casting cost. If there is a cost in activation cost, it's the same colour. So 217 of those. But again, no cards where the colour identity may be more than the casting cost. So, you know, no instances where you might be using white to cast a card, but there's blue in the activation cost or another colour. And then there's 16 cards which are 2 colour. In some way, and that would be in this set in the casting cost, and then a couple of cards which are more than 2 colours, which are 3 colours. So going through the individual colours, what sort of creature types do we see gravitating in those colours? So in white we've got, interestingly enough, we've got vampires in white, in quite a number, actually. Dinosaurs cropping up, there's a hound. So we're seeing quite a lot of dinosaurs and vampires in white, alongside the usual humans, plus there's some other additional creature types like knight, and scouts and soldiers. And then in the multicoloured cards we've got dinosaurs, vampires, and this sort of gives you a clue as to where we might see those creature types in the other colours. So in blue, more pirates in blue. We've got elemental, a fish, merfolk in blue as well. Quite a number of merfolk. So pirates and merfolk in blue. Some humans. See, a number of the cards also reference a type of siren as well. And then in the two colour cards, you can see we've got human pirates, merfolk shaman. So, yeah. So in black, vampires. If we've got vampires, no doubt we'll see some bats. More pirates, actually. So some pirates in black. We do have some orcs as well. So vampires and pirates in black. In red, oh, more pirates, more dinosaurs. Got a goblin pirate. And again, humans putting in an appearance. So it looks like red creature cards were predominantly dinosaurs and pirates. And then it's interesting to see what they do in green. Because, you know, in a lot of sets that's normally the home of elves. But in a set where there's specific types of creature types, then sometimes that gets mixed up a little bit. But we've got dinosaurs heavily present. Interesting to see merfolk in green. Some humans here, so merfolk as well in green. Cool. So let's go and have a look at the large spells. So 13 cards where the mana value is greater than 6. And no surprise, well, we've got dinosaurs. You can see a number of those large spells are in fact creatures, and they're dinosaur creatures. Have we got any large fish? There's just one in blue, I think. Okay, so I mentioned, being a tribal set. So let's actually look and see here for the main tribes from the set to see what we've, where they do reside, slicing by creature type. So pirates, 39 pirate cards that have a type of pirate. So I'm assuming in this set they're all creatures. There's no like tribal instance or tribal sorceries, but we'll see. So we're seeing what? Blue, black, red. Yeah, blue, black, red. And also you'll notice that when we come to look at the legendary creatures, that those subdivisions are repeated. So you can tell actually by looking at the legendary creatures how the colour pie breaks down with relation to the tribal cards. So dinosaurs, so white, red, green, and again down here we've got a legendary creature in red, green, white. So that's just the order it is on on the Wooburg pie. So there's 38 of those. It's 21 merfolk cards. And we saw how that, just going through the individual colours, how heavily represented they were. So 21 merfolk cards. And blue and green. Interestingly. There's our legendary. And then 20 with a creature type of vampire. And they, as you probably guess already from what we've seen, are white and black. And there's our legendary creature for that tribe. So I mentioned there were double face cards. There's 10 of them. And it's sort of spread out quite a bit. So let's look and see what they transform into. You can see there's these transform triggers. What causes them to flip. To flip to the other side. So let's see what's on the other side. So Legion's Landing flips to Adanto, the first fort. Okay, so these are flipping to legendary lands. Search for Ascanta, Arguel's Bloodfast, Fancy's Blasting Cannons, Growing Rights of Italimok, Conqueror's Galleon flips to Conqueror's Foothold, Dowsing Dagger flips to Lost Vale, Primal Amulet flips to Primal Wellspring, Thematic Compass flips to Spires of Orazka, and this one here, Treasure Map, flips to Treasure Cove. So that's interesting. First time I think we've seen flip cards which exclusively flip to lands. 5 of them are legendary lands, and the other 5 are regular, non-basic lands. And you can see here how, so these ones are all, like, where they do have a mana they generate, they're all monocolour. I've got one here that's tribal in nature. And then we move on here, it's a bit of a mixed bag. So we've got a number here that fix for multiple colours, but not all of them. So yeah, interesting set. Interesting way they've done the artwork as well. I have to see if I pulled any of these actually. Okay, vehicles were a thing, so there were 5 vehicles in the set. And if you remember, with vehicles you have this ability on them where you have to crew them. So there's a crew and then a number, and the number represents the total power required to crew them. Tap any number of creatures you control with total power, in this case 2 or more. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature until end of turn, so it transforms into artifact. Well, transforms a bad word to use, but yeah, becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. And so you have to tap down creatures to do that, and they have to add up to, in terms of power, to the crew number. So 5 of those. We've got 18 cards that reference treasure in some way, and this is obviously going to be these treasure tokens. So treasure tokens have sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool, or specifically tap, sacrifice this artifact. I'm looking to see if anything just references a treasure token but doesn't actually produce one. I don't think that's the case. I think these all actually produce treasure tokens. Yep. Oh yes, +1/+1 counters So I've done the search, so it looks both in the rules text and the reminder text as well here, because you can see that the explore mechanic, or the I don't think whether that's considered to be a mechanic or an ability. The explore keyword ability word, that has a reference to +1/+1 counters in it. But you see a number of these are generating +1/+1 counters or reference +1/+1 counters without being related to the explore keyword. And you can also see here we've got, looks like a lot of the time the explore is triggered by the card entering the battlefield. But there's a few where it's things like combat damage, I think. Not sure how many. I wonder if there's anywhere it's if it leaves the battlefield. There's one where it's if it's dealt damage. So yeah, a little bit of variability there on how the explore is triggered. But you can see as well a number of these just reference +1/+1 counters without specifically being part of that explore keyword ability word. So 39 cards reference life in some way, like life gain. So I mentioned that there was a concept in here of life as a resource, and no surprise where vampires are involved. So there's also quite a bit of life link as a result going on with a number of these. So the life relations on the cards can be due to life gain or some other reason. Sorry, life link, I meant to say a life link, or not explicitly done through life link but some other means. Explore was a thing, so with explore, so just to compare and contrast, so 15 cards specifically reference explore out of the 31 cards that have a +1/+1 counter on them, because explore, as I said previously, so let's look at explore. Reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, then put the card back or put it into your graveyard. So, when you explore, it's the case that you don't always get the +1/+1 counter. It just depends if it's a land or not. So, if it's a land, you get to put it in your hand. If it's not, then you get the +1/+1 counter. And as you can see, because you're placing +1/+1 counters on the card, it's a creature. There is one here which is a creature but cares about explore. So there's one there that doesn't actually wouldn't have been part of the slice for +1/+1, because it cares about explore rather than does explore. We've got enrage, so we use this as an example. Actually, whenever bellowing Aegis is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Each other creature you control. So, with the enrage, whenever the creature is dealt damage, something happens. This one was +1/+1 counters. This one is tokens. This one is damage. This one is searching for basic land. Life gain. Card draw. +1/+1 counters again. And as you can see, that's definitely a dinosaur thing. We have raid. And you can see that seems to gravitate around pirates, which makes sense. So with raid, you can see actually here we've got a number of different scenarios where the raid is connected to. So let's have a look at a couple of these. So this one here, which is an enchantment. So at the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature this turn, target opponent puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. With this one, which is a creature, when Shipwrecked Looter enters the battlefield, if you attacked with a creature this turn, you may discard a card. So I'm looking for the common denominator in the template, and it looks like the common denominator for raid is this: if you attacked with a creature. So that sort of, it hinges on that check, if you like. If you attack with a creature. But what they place either side on it is different on different cards. So on this one, it happens at the beginning of your end step. You have to have attacked with a creature and then you get something. With this one, when it enters the battlefield, if you attack with a creature, you get something. With this one, when it enters the battlefield, it gets +1/+1 counter on it if you attack with the creature, and so on. So there's 14 of those. We've got crew, because of the presence of vehicles. So I'd explain that when we looked at the crew card. And we've seen vehicles before now on quite a few occasions in other sets. We also have, which is interesting, cards with the word crew in them as well. So there's 7 cards here, 5 of which are there because they're vehicles, so that maps onto the 5 vehicles in the set, which you can see are all ships, no surprise. But there are a couple of cards which, through a name, have the word crew in them, but don't specifically, as far as I can see, enhance a crew. Yeah, no. I mentioned about transform. Being obviously tied to what facilitates the double face card for flipping. Because in different sets now you can get different reasons why, and the wording might be slightly different, and how you flip between the two as well. So moving on to actual cycles. Now we've dealt with some of the features, the themes, mechanics, and the abilities and keywords. What have we got cycle-wise? So we've got these legendary transforming artifacts. So within the transform cards, there's a subset of 5 cards, which are legendary enchantments. And we've seen that these all, let me just show you again. these all transform into corresponding legendary lands. They're all at rare. And you can see they all generate the corresponding colour, but then they have an additional ability as well. 4 out of the 5 require, well actually, sorry, 3 out of the 5 require mana to be expended. One of them is a mana amplifier, the green one, no surprise there, and one of them revolves around life gain, the additional ability. We've got a cycle of keepers. So if you look, you can see there's a templating aspect on here. There are 5 common creatures. They will have keeper in the title, and they have an activated ability that costs 7 and 1 coloured mana. Tapping and sacrificing a creature, they function as late game mana sinks. And if you're familiar with Magic sets from bygone eras, then you probably will see similarity between these and the invokers from Legions and Rise of the Eldrazi. So we have a cycle of these Explorer Commons. So 5 common creatures explores when they enter the battlefield. Oops. The other thing you might notice is there's this increase in casting cost for each one. So the green one is 1 and a green, the blue one is 2 and a blue, the red one is 3 and a red, the white one's 4 and a white, and the black one's 5 and a black. So we've got 4 avatars here, or sorry, 4 dinosaur avatars. Now, the 3 of them here form this sort of partial cycle. So out of the 4 avatars, 3 of them form this partial cycle. And you can see there's a ETB here into the battlefield a bit, although this is slightly different than or another creature. And apparently this relates back to aspects of the threefold sun, which is a deity worshipped in the 3 aspects by the people of the Sun Empire on Ixalan. So you're probably going to realise there's quite a bit of non-basic land in the set. We've got a cycle of the 5 rare dual lands that come into play tapped if you control a land of one of the appropriate types. So Glacial Fortress enters the battlefield tapped unless, unless you control plains or an island. So it's all unless you control, and they come into play tapped. If you do control, then they don't. And you can see there, so we've got white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green, white, so they are allied colour check lands. And then here we have the 2 colour draft archetypes, but there's only 8 of them. So it's missing the white, blue and the black, green cards. This is due to no tribes on Ixalan consisting of those colour combinations. Now, of course, white, blue flying and black, green explore are still viable draft archetypes. But, yeah, there was only 8 out of the 10. You would usually see. I mean, we have seen sets with just 5 in them as well. Legendary creature, so there's 4 of those, and the cycle just revolves around the colour combinations for the tribes, rather than being specifically in, you know, all 5 of a certain colour combination. Based on 2 colours or 3 colours, it's mixed here. So we've got 2 are 2 colours and 2 are 3 colours. And so Vampire Knight, legendary creatures, white, black. Merfolk Shaman legendary creature is green, blue. The Human Pirate, blue, black, red. And the Dinosaur Avatar, red, green, white. So vampires, merfolk, pirates, dinosaurs. So, a couple of mirrored pairs. We've got a pair of rare multicolour creatures with a powerful interspout ability, each of which is one of the tribes introduced in Ixalan. So there's a pirate one, dinosaur one. Then we've got another mirrored pair, a pair of uncommon scout creatures with a mana cost of 1 and a colour. They explore when they enter the battlefield. They have a mirrored pair and toughness and help the green-black draft archetype, and the green-black draft archetype was one of the ones that was missing from the draft indicators. So it's there, but they don't have a specific draft indicator there. I think it was supposedly those 2 were considered to be for more advanced drafters, so didn't have a specific indicator in there. That's the white, blue and the black, green. 70 mythics, and you'll see where some of these they're from the Planeswalker decks. And if you remember from the Planeswalker deck, there was a Planeswalker, a version of a Planeswalker in the Planeswalker deck that was also in the set boosters. So they're both in the sets, just one is in the Planeswalker deck and one is in the set boosters. Now what was interesting is when they were first was sort of spoiled and came out, it looked initially like, you know, they were mainly like watered down versions of the Planeswalker in the set. So the Planeswalker deck version was watered down. But as they did more of the decks, the Planeswalker decks, there were some instances where certain Planeswalkers were pretty powerful. Be interesting when we actually come to look at the legendary creatures here versus the Planeswalkers. So 20 cards in our basic land pool, if you like. So four 4 pieces of artwork per colour of mana. That's a bit of a treat. Hopefully you've been enjoying the special that I did, the Yuletide Land Ahoy special. I stopped it just before we got to Ixalan. So I'll just spend a little bit more time here scrolling through these maybe. And I should obviously get up to these end of next year, and we go through stuff. But by then I would have finished my my run of set musings for older sets, or sets that were released prior to me starting the set musings on newer sets. These are nice. I like how, let me just see if I can show you this. There's no real easy way necessarily to do this. Maybe there is. So I'm just checking before I say this. So I don't know if you can see, but it looks like the way these are lined up, there is actually a vertical slice through this. If you look at the artist name, so all these down here, same artist, all the ones in this column, and this column, all. So 4 different artists, but they all did each one of a colour and manner. And it was just I was drawn towards these ones, which have a bit more of a watercolour look to them, maybe. So we've got 20 cards which in some way are non-basic lands. So, and that's high because of the presence of these transform cards, which transform into non-basic lands of some form, either a legendary land or a regular land. And then we get the 2 colour combinations. So we've got 5 of those, but mixed in amongst that, obviously because we're looking at the set as a whole, we're going to see the 2 that are in the Planeswalker decks. So these 2 ones that just enter the battlefield tapped, they're not the check land, they're not part of the check land cycle. So we've got 5 of the check lands, 2 of the tap lands, a Field of Ruin, Unclaimed Territory, and Unknown Shores. Unclaimed Territory is interesting because it's a tribal land. I mean, that, enters the battlefield and you get to choose a creature type, and then you can generate mana of any colour, but only spend it on to cast creature spells of the chosen type. So just so you can see where they came from, if indeed they've been printed in previous sets. We were starting to see these ones a lot now, as I mentioned in previous episodes about them being included in Planeswalker, not Planeswalker sets, deck builders toolkits. In addition to the Planeswalker decks, yeah. So 5 Planeswalker cards, and of course 4 of those, so you've got 2 of these are actually from the Planeswalker decks. So 3 are in the boosters. So the 3 in the boosters will be Jace Cunning Castaway, Vraska Relic Seeker, and Hatuli Warrior Poet, I believe, yeah. So 7 legendary creatures. So in addition to the legendary creatures that were specifically tied to the 2 colour combinations, so there's 4 of those, we've also got legendary creatures which are related to a particular tribe, but they're just one of the colours. So there's a white, a blue and a red, and you can see here we've got vampires, merfolks and pirates. There isn't a single colour legendary dinosaur, interestingly enough. So of those 5 legendary enchantments, and we have 147 creatures of one type or another. We've got 18 enchantments, including the legendary ones. And if you remember, all the legendary ones are transforms. We have 6 auras, and you can see, what was that? 5 of them enchant creatures, 1 does a land. We've got a single artifact creature in the set. We have 4 pieces of equipment. I was curious with the cobbled wings where we'd seen that before. Yeah. And 1 is a transform. And there are 9 just regular artifacts. And being that it's a tribal set, we've got Vanquisher's banner. It was reprinted in those Time Spiral remasters. And yeah, again, there's a couple of transforms there. You can see we've got, a few cards now where we have to choose a creature type. There's our 5 vehicles. Artifact vehicles. 38 instants. So what's interesting is you look through these, you'll see quite a lot of them. There's not necessarily, well, let me just dial back what I was going to say there, because of the themes in the set, you'll see several of these. So we've got ones with like +1/+1s, ones with life gain as well, and there's this sort of draw a card stapled to some of them as well. I'm just looking to see if I can see anywhere they specifically have like a keyword, like exploring rage, raid, that sort of thing on them. By its nature, I suppose I wouldn't see some of them because they were creature specific, but I'm trying to keep an eye out for anything like that where it has the one of the keywords or abilities from the set stapled to it. But we're certainly seeing themes and mechanics stapled in here. So the tribal aspect. Got a bit of scry turning up as well. There's our treasure artifact tokens. moving into black now, so we've got some removal. And then damage in red. An asymmetric pump. And then fog effects green. Got counters, which was a theme anyway. There's our artifacts and enchantment removal. We've got a bit of modal spells going on here between fly and enchantment. Fight, pump. Yeah, so the usual things you'd expect to see at instant speed with theme mechanic twists to them for the set. Looking at sorcery speed stuff, so 27 sorceries. Looks like we've got a bit of an imbalance here. So there's just a couple in white. And this thing that white often does, where destroying target creatures that have a certain thing about them. In this case it's power 4 or greater. So in a dinosaur themed set you can see why that might be a thing. Got a tribal token generation, card draw, gaining control of a creature. So this is going to be one of these namesake cards from the Planeswalker deck, or cards that generate or reference the Planeswalker. Duress is in here. And more tribal stuff. There's Demolish. And then some sorcery speed damage spells. Wow. There's a dinosaur extinction themed sorcery there that destroys a target land and then deals 20 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. Okay, what else we got? Oh, so we're back to the set. So let's have a look at things through the lens of price and EDH Rec. So price wise, this is the most expensive, like regular card in the set if you don't include promos or things like Cheddar-Tress or Judge gift cards. $21. Oh, Gisharth. 15. Vanquisher's banner, yeah, no surprise here because it's not been reprinted many times. So not much shift there. Revel in Riches, $10, so we're getting to the $10 threshold. Primal Amulet drops just below that. So within what? 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, we've dropped below $10. So after that, what do we have? There's a dinosaur avatar. So yeah, those have been reprinted quite a few times now. I tend to forget that. And you can see most of the stuff up the top here, only ever appeared in mainly in Ixalan. We got one in a mystery booster, so not been reprinted a ton of times. The top ones here. So the EDH Rec ranking. So these are cards that aren't reprints, so they appeared in this set for the first time. They've been possibly reprinted since then. Unclaimed Territory. Yep, makes sense. Tribal card. Vanquisher's Banner, another tribal card. Field of Ruin. Growing Rights of Itlimok. Here's our reprints, and you can see, yep, top of the pile is the checklands. We've also got opt up here. Spell, piece and cancel. So these are the reprints. So when we mesh the two together, yeah, the reprints definitely bubble above everything else, and there's our first of the cards that were printed for the first time in Ixalan. And we've got the yeah, so we've got a group of 3 there. Well, actually, I think these ones, and then we've got the spell pierce. So in terms of legendary creatures, Captain Lannery's Storm, Kishath, Maven Fane, Tishana, Vona, Kapala, and Admiral Beckett Brass. So the other stuff that we had, so I'd mentioned about the Planeswalker deck, so 2, Jace and Ixalan, I think that is, I can never pronounce that. Ixalan Dinosaur Knight, so blue, green and white, red. And there they are. You can see there's our tap land. That's our list of exclusive cards and additional rares. So 5 exclusive cards in each deck, or obviously there might be multiple copies of those. And then 2 additional rares. So the rare counts were higher, and the rarity count were higher, like the mythics and the rares, than intro decks or theme decks. And then we have the same sort of thing, 5 and 2. There were also battle packs. So these were 2 single colour welcome decks and then 2 Ixalan booster packs. So it's a variation on Pack Wars. Each sample deck contains basic lands, commons, 4 uncommons and a rare. And they've got cards from Kaladesh, Ether Result and Amonkhet. They don't contain cards from Hour of Devastation or Ixalan. But they've got the Ixalan booster battle packs in them. And they're only available at big box stores like Walmart or Target. And then a deck builder's toolkit. So if you remember back originally when deck builders toolkits were released, well, initially when they were released, they didn't really neatly line up with anything. I mean, they probably around about the release of the core set. Then they started lining up with the core sets. Then when they went over to the 2 set block, 2 sets per block model. They were released, I think, twice a year is getting to. Yeah, a couple of times a year. So there's this fixed content component, which includes the land and so the non-basic lands and the land. Evolving Wilds was used as a separator for the 4 semi-random things. So out of this list here, so of 7 possible groups, you got 4 out of the 7. So a little bit smaller than the number of choices before over time. Now, what they obviously done here is they gravitated around themes in the set. So you had, out of the 7 possible groups, you had vampires, merfolk, dinosaurs, of which there were 2, pirates were 2, and ramp. So you got 4 out of those 7. And then you got some booster packs in there as well. And the 15 booster packs were from, I think one from, so it's 4, did I say 15 booster packs? I meant 15 card booster packs. Sorry, you didn't get 15 booster packs. You got 4 15 card booster packs. Yeah, that would be a bit excessive. So yeah, they tended to be 1 each of the most recent sets. But again, in the early days of the Deck Builders Toolkits, that got a little wobbly and it was changed, and yeah, you know, so moving on to just the spoiler for the upcoming Commander Durdle episode. So of course I had to go with dinosaurs. So I'm going to let Architect help me build a Gishath deck. You can see here, and I'll go through these in the actual episode, yeah, I'm leaning heavily on all the dinosaur creatures in the set. So yeah, I've pulled in. I'll probably prune this down a bit when we get to the episode, because there's probably some vanilla creatures in here which, yeah, I can safely remove, because we've currently got 38 creatures. So we're already up to 83 cards here when we include the other support cards that are playable from the set. But I'll take a look at that when we do the Commander Durdle episode. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.